So, um, welcome to the information session. It's not really a workshop. I am going to go through a few scenarios and I am going to share my screen so that Christine can see it and anybody else who signs in. I'm Glenn Gummas. You know that already. I work in tech support. I'm an educational technologist. I kind of specialize in video streaming, and I assist in the support of the operation of Canvas. And the topic of artificial intelligence, as you know, exploded on the scene not that long ago, November 2022. It came out of its cage. And man, it has really had a rather explosive impact across the length and breadth of just about every segment of society. I myself got really curious about it. And the more curious I got about AI, the more I tried to find out. Some of what you are going to see today are simply reported findings from an educational workshop I attended through EDUCAUSE called Teaching with AI. I got a digital badge. This didn't necessarily make me an expert on AI, but it did give me, I think, a wider range from about maybe of 75 degrees to more of a 180-degree view, not more or less than anybody else. But I hope that what I have to share for you is useful.
Well, you talk about the different platforms,
a little bit.
But there's two other platforms, right, that exist out there.
For our purposes today, I'm going to spend time with Gemini, simply because I think I like Gemini. I think it's very easy to use. Copilot is the other one with Microsoft Office 365. I'm going to spend some time mostly on Gemini, but Copilot, those two are important to USF because they're within our circle. We've circled the wagons around the students, the faculty. They can use these tools and not worry about the rest of the internet learning about what any student is doing.
So you're saying Gemini and Copilot are much better than ChatGPT?
I've used ChatGPT. I've got a personal opinion. I'm not going to say they're either better or worse. I'm just going to say they're available. Yeah. The underlying theme that I've had for these workshops comes from an instructional designer, and this is a quote that's 30 years old. I don't know what she said, but I'll never forget it. She said, all of instructional design boils down to this question. What do we want our students to learn? Mr. Two in there. And what is the evidence that we will accept that they've learned it? Well, I think this disruption that artificial intelligence has been causing may be changing the type of evidence that we require to see what they have learned. And we'll check out how that is kind of manifesting itself. We probably don't realize it as much, but we use AI all the time. Here are some of the different types of artificial intelligences at work, both at work and at play. And what I've done is I've put logos up here for the various chatbots that are available now. Chatbot is a generic term. Gen AI is perhaps a better term. Generative AI is the type that we are mostly concerned about because it is the machine learner. It learns the language. It learns from every document, video, and information that's been put out there, and then it uses that to generate original outputs by predicting the next word. I don't know how that works. I just know that it does it amazingly. And sometimes it does it erroneously. Sometimes there are hallucinations. There's a new kid on the block. It's this X1 thing that you see in the center middle. That's called Grok. You can gain access to Grok through Elon Musk's X. So I will leave that alone right where it is. He must have been reading Stranger in a Strange Land. So what's the pervasiveness? This is from a study in October 2023 that said that over half of students used Gen AI, only about 75% of faculty. Now that's back then. As of now, maybe the statistics have changed a little bit, but according to the Pew Research, and this is out today, this is today's news, 80% of Americans generally don't use AI. And those younger than 50 are more likely to use AI at work. So that's an interesting perspective there. when you travel around in social media, I like to use Facebook a lot. I'm still using quite a bit. Every once in a while, I come across an annoying ad like this. Now, this guy is ostensibly a valedictorian or something, and he's bragging about how he's used multiple stealth AI tools. This is an ad for something called Stealth GPT, which can take artificial intelligence input or output that you get when you enter a query, and then humanize it. And that gets past the detectors. This makes me sick when I look at it. GPT? I don't know. Goofballs part-time. That's about as most. That is it. I'm kind of old school now in my later days. So what can go wrong? Here is I want to share with you an actual pitfall of the academic use of a chatbot. What you're seeing here is a paragraph. Please provide a brief paragraph discussing the relationship between inclusion and diversity. That's an actual discussion topic from a faculty member. And so the faculty member comes back and checks the replies and sees this. Well, that looks pretty good. Let's take a moment to look at that. It's got some depth, it's got some breadth, it's well written. All the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. Just one thing wrong with it. If you take that same paragraph, put it in a Word document, and run it through Turnitin's Feedback Studio, its plagiarism checker will show a 50% level of plagiarism. Now, and Christine Marks, my colleague, is on with me in case I get this wrong. The AI checker is turned off. It's not available now to detect AI, but the plagiarism checker spotted it. Truth be told, this whole paragraph is a product of a query into Gemini. And Gemini came back and spit that out. What's worse is that if the student is savvy enough and runs it through a so-called humanizer like Stealth GPT, this output is what will be created. This output is aggressively humanized, whatever that means, and the catch rate changes to 0%. That student has successfully gotten past that. But the question I pose is, could this activity be transformed into a way that promotes higher learning? I'll circle back to that in a minute and sort of zoom out and ask, where is the line crossed in using Gen AI ethically? From the University of Texas, you're about to hear from Provost Julia Schell. She is the academic technology provost, and she participated in a conference called the Faculty Guide to AI, which occurred November 19th, 2024. She's the provost of the UT system. This is what she has to say.
It's not enough just to say.
Let me make sure that the video is also. I got to make sure. Let's see. All right, hang on. I got to make sure that it's optimized so that you can hear the video clip. Come on. Okay, let's try this again. All right, this is what she has to say.
It's not enough just to say, I don't like it, you shouldn't use it, it's cheating. So the use of generative AI in itself is not cheating. Taking output that's been generated by generative AI, passing it off as your own and saying that you created it by yourself would be a violation of academic integrity, right? But using generative AI itself is it's not cheating. So when we just kind of make those comments like using AI is cheating, I don't want you to use it, it's banned in my class, it doesn't help students develop that ethical muscle. And it doesn't help them develop those durable skills about, creativity, critical thinking, evaluation, and determining what's misinformation and what's disinformation, which is what we think they need.
So with that in the background, I'll return back to the question, how can that generative AI exercise that included a diversity statement. How can that be transformed? Well, I've got Google Drive up here, and you'll notice that I am signed in as myself. So let me rewind. The student, if they were to go to use Gemini, they would go to Tools, Google Apps. That would send them to their home page. And then from this waffle menu up here, they could select Gemini. And there is Gemini. And the thing to notice to me, which is more important than anything else, is in this fine print. You have now added data protection, so your data isn't used to train or improve any generative AI models. That's a statement of the guardrail that surrounds USF faculty and staff and students. And so I did this. I took that question that professor asked, and I entered that. Please provide a brief paragraph. This was the output. Now, the cheating way, the unethical way, is to copy and paste and call it a day. But what if the student were tasked with going to Gemini, entering this question, coming up with the results, and then from this kebab menu here, choosing double check response? Gemini will go to work a little bit, just as it's doing right now. This is live. And it will highlight these areas with these little down arrows. For each one of these, you will see a website. Now, Joe, you made a very valid point. Some of these are fictional. I find in my experience that most of them do lead to exterior web sources. And so the student could be tasked with, let's say, going to this site and seeing an article about diversity versus inclusion, reading it, writing down notes about what the site is all about, doing that with the other site, with the other sources, and then being tasked, was Gemini right? Did it get it right? And then evaluating Gemini's output, and then maybe writing a reflection or something. This could also be put into, this could be cited and put into a Word document using the reference tools. If you like to use Zotero, it could be easily ported into Zotero. Zotero is a big citation management tool. I've shown my students how to use it. Many of them really take it to it. But I digress. Whoops. Hide floating meeting controls. Let me get rid of this. So basically, to summarize this activity that I'm postulating as a theoretical or as a hypothetical, you're asking the student to enter the prompt into Gemini. You're asking the student to double check the response, find sources, and sometimes there won't be any responses. If that's the case, you need to, the student needs to redefine the prompt to make it more specific. You can see this, writing a reflection in writing, so on and so forth. And then include, not only with the works cited, but also include the source from Gemini. Gemini was, I contacted this on February 7th, 2025. Here is the prompt, and there is the website. This does not fall under APA 7th citation standards, because those standards do not include the statement of the prompt. They don't, and I think it's really, really important to get the prompt in there. So this is what I would ask my students to do. So now you've got an activity. If you look around behind you, there's Bloom's taxonomy. You've touched on a few of those. Apply, evaluate, analyze. Some of that's higher order thinking, by simply transforming that exercise into something that'll make the students say, what do I have here? Is this right? How do I know it's right? Let me investigate further. All right, that kind of thing. So let me zoom out a little bit and talk about how we view AI. This is information that comes from that Teaching with Artificial Intelligence 2024. These are hypothetical statements of what students would say. So if it suggests that we can view AI as an enemy, as a tutor, as an assistant, or as a proxy. What do you think the students would say? Yes. What would teachers say if they viewed AI as an enemy? As a tutor, AI can help me understand. As a teacher, AI can support underprepared students, the Vietnam students. As an assistant, AI can be used to help me outline, reword, and revise. Grammarly is an artificial intelligence tool. I use Grammarly all the time.
Yeah.
I don't have any compunctions about using it because I can reject the changes it recommends, and I still feel like it's speaking with my voice. Okay. And as a proxy, this is where things get really dicey. Just let AI do it all. So those are 4 views that academia seems to have about AI, which leads me to 3 approaches to using AI. And again, this comes from the workshop that I attended. The red light is not at all. Support is a little bit. Elevate is almost no holds barred. Drilling a little bit deeper, mitigating means offering a short-term solution that will make it unlikely for students to use AI. This is a statement on supporting students. I won't read it all to you. I'll just let you take a look at it. And elevate AI as a catalyst for assignment transformation. If you are in the red light category, if you want to mitigate, here are some mitigation strategies. This is part of the reason the workshop is an hour long, because I put together summaries of each of these. Custom course materials, you create the content. Students record their own video or appear live. I like that. And if I were teaching television production, which I sometimes do, that would be it. Now, if you have them do oral examinations, the information that I've read, to summarize it, having a student get up there and make a speech may increase their anxiety tremendously. Fighting anxiety is a fundamental part of speech communications classes on this campus. So you might want to include a little module on how to overcome anxiety if you have them do oral examinations. And this one here, code of conduct, I think this is really important. If you're going to allow AI at all, and let me back up by saying none of this information I'm giving you today is meant to be prescriptive. I'm simply throwing out ideas and some opinions, but I'm not saying that you must or should do anything. What I would do, though, is if I were to allow AI, I'd make it clear to the students we're going to use AI in this course. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to put certain limitations of what we can and cannot do. Just try to make it clear to them. Syllabus, I think, is not a bad place to load this. And if you allow AI, now I'm going to show you some examples that have a lot of detail, but I'm going to summarize each one and then take a deep dive into the last one. Here's one scenario: concept mastery through AI interaction. The students, this is meant to enhance understanding and mastery of a critical term. I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to summarize it. Select a topic, use AI to try to understand it, create questions about the topic. So what the student is being asked to do is to use AI to help understand, redefine, create new ideas, and generate some feedback, perhaps through peer reviews. The next one, collaborative debugging and problem solving. Samples of codes. Now we're into computer science. We're asking AI to help students understand how to code, how to program, which is why I wish there were more computer science faculty here today. Here, AI is being used as a tutor. But then the students are asked to demonstrate what they've learned. We're assessing their actual coding skills. We may or may not allow a little bit of AI assistance for certain cookie cutter operations that are simply time wasters, and we know what they're going to do anyway. And then spend some time reflecting on what they've learned. In this example, problem solving using real AI world issues. Joe, this might appeal to you. Choosing a real world problem, maybe something in business, maybe finding a solution in AI. And you can see the rest of this. Develop a project proposal and reflection. You guys do that a lot in your classes, don't you? Yeah, you do that a lot. So it's group work or individual research, applied project, and then a reflection. That's how I summarized it in those headlines. And the last one, interactive AI-aided essay writing, is much like the first one I gave you on steroids. Topic selection. Now you're asking the students to research a topic with AI and develop something like a speech. Well, a speech requires a thesis statement, it requires an annotated bibliography, it requires an outline. And so I'm going to explore this a little bit further by taking you to an actual case study. And this is something that got entered in the Gemini by me. I had the goal to persuade students not to procrastinate. That's a big deal with me. So I thought, why not research it myself? So I did that. I started off by asking Gemini, is there a study on procrastination among young people? It came up with this. When I clicked double check response, it gave me various links that I could examine, which could be used as citations. And I would also say that this background information could be used. You could ask the students to, now that you've read this, come up with some good search descriptors that you can enter into a library database. Find me a periodical. Find me a journal citation of support. I'll bet you this would also, I think that would be close to master's degree level work.
Yeah, but you know,
Go ahead.
here, well, for this, I think to your point, I think you should wait till graduate because that's where I see the struggle in the undergrad students because they don't have a point of reference. They struggle with the intellectual capability to create this type of thinking, this higher order thinking. And I see this as going to be the foundation of what we hope to impart with students.
Okay, Joe, I know this is going to annoy you, but could you summarize briefly the point that you're making?
Yeah, so I had mentioned that I think, to Glenn's point, we could use this to help undergraduate students who are struggling with understanding a concept because they don't have a point of reference or they don't have strong research skills. This would enhance that, provide them a foundation to start the research process in earnest so that by the time they got into graduate school, this wouldn't be such a foreign concept.
Okay, so let's go on to the next step. And if you want to say something, just pick up the microphone and take it away. So from that, you could ask the student to do the same activity. And from that, they generate an outline. Here's a bibliography. They may fill out a sheet which will help them build their thesis. We actually have a thesis worksheet to fill out. And so you've got the generation of thesis, you have a planning document for the creation of an outline. And in this outline, the speaker, since it is a persuasive speech, needs to consider what kind of organizational pattern. Well, in this case, Monroe's motivated sequence seems to help. Here is where you have an attention getter. You express the need, the problem that needs to be solved, and then you express how the solution can satisfy that need. And you visualize what success looks like, and then there's a call to action. So this is, I know I'm breezing through this real fast, but this is where all of the previous work took us into generating a new document, which can then be transformed into a speaking outline and ultimately a presentation, a speaking outline, a slide deck, and a presentation. That's hopefully the end game, and the student will do well. Not too many vocal fillers, not too much stumbling. I think I'm doing pretty good today, but that's for you to decide. And zooming back out a little bit, what have we got here? We have asked the student to do all these things, and it seems to me that you could put check marks next to all of those. We've taken the students on a tour, an immersive experience in higher order learning, it seems to me, hypothetically. And it all started with asking them to start with Gemini, start with ChatGPT, start with Copilot. So, okay. And across all disciplines, what I took from that workshop, which I'm sharing with you, is asking the students questions like this. What do they hope to gain? Teaching students how to use AI responsibly, teaching students how to write prompts effectively, teach AI citation practices. But there's no free lunch. There's potential benefits and risks of using AI in education. For these areas, for these domains, content development, assessment design, and so on and so forth, there's a risk of plagiarism. There's a risk of diminished student and teacher agency and accountability. I think a lot depends on what you ask of the students. There's a lot of compromised student. There's a potential for student privacy to be compromised, but that's taken care of as far as Copilot and Gemini are concerned within those guardrails of USF. If you authenticate with your USF email address, if you authenticate, there's a possibility of over-reliance and loss of critical thinking. And there's societal bias, lack of cultural sensitivity. I don't know how that would play out, but that's what came out in the workshop. So where do we go from here? Short-term questions, short-term solutions, long-term solutions. These are a variety of hypothetical questions that one could ask. And if you can think of any more, what grade would an AI get in the course? And here's some solutions of a short-term, long-term, and long-term nature, long-term questions, long-term solutions. Are my students actually using AI tools? Are my students actually using AI tools? That to me would be hard to monitor, but you look at course data and analytic data. Canvas has got some very detailed analytics that are available, but I don't know if they necessarily reflect the use of AI. They might give you clues. How does the use of AI tools affect student performance? You know, the middle candidate for president, I asked that question to him. I asked a similar question to him. And we both agreed that Gen AI can shorten the time it takes to get from inquiry to research result, and shorten the time. Is that a bad thing? Was it bad when calculators were introduced a long time? How are my students actually using AI tools? I think writing reflections is a pretty good idea. Keeping an eye on what's new. There's an avalanche of new stuff that's coming down almost all the time. It's hard to keep up. But maybe that's why they keep me around for a little bit.
So you said ChatGPT, and what was the third one?
Gemini and Copilot.
Oh, Copilot, that's it.
And two more questions. What are my colleagues doing and thinking? And that's one reason I sort of threw it out to you. What are you doing? And if you'd like to share, please go ahead. There'll be one more of these on March the 30th. If you could ask your colleagues to come to this and share. What is the best approach? Mitigation, support, elevation. Which of the three approaches best gets us to where we want the students to be? Okay, anybody have any questions or comments or?
So which one of the three have you used more predominantly? Gemini, as you said?
I've used Gemini for class purposes exclusively. I've explored Copilot. I've gone outside of that too. I've got a minimal subscriptions to something called Perplexity.ai. I think Perplexity is the best. I really, really do. But it's a minimal subscription, $4.99, and USF doesn't support that. Why would they? We've got Gemini and Chat and Copilot, and both of those are really, really good. I've used Grok too. I hate it.
Oh,
I absolutely hate it. I hate it. Let me repeat myself. I hate Grok. I do not grok very well.
okay.
It doesn't offer the citation identification that Gemini and Copilot did.
That's interesting. I wonder what the reasoning.
Probably Elon Musk. I'll stop there.
Oh, got it. You say more.
Anything else? Okay, so it may seem daunting at first. In fact, I think I liken learning how to use AI and dealing with its issues as similar to riding a sandworm in the movie Dune. But as they say, one bite at a time if you're trying to bite the elephant. In my travels, what I've seen as given as advice is lead the student instead of enforcing authority. That's been tough for me. I'm so tempted to hold the Damocles sword over the student's head. No, that's not what I want to do. I want to find out what they're doing and help them do it right. Okay. And it's okay to admit what you don't know. I love this. AI cannot do your learning for you. It's similar to something a friend of mine in the computer sciences said, computers don't do your thinking for you. Well, AI is the same thing. And then finally, be kind to yourself. Or bottom line, you could just take Stilgar's advice.
Be simple, be direct, nothing fancy.
And that's all I have.
So Glenn, do you have, I mean, it's nice that you have samples of assignments. Could you potentially share that with faculty just to kind of get them started in this process? Because I would certainly love to do it. It seems pretty straightforward to me if I'm going to have them do Gemini. Like, hey, you have this assignment coming up.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll do you one better, and I guess I'll be a little bit dogmatic about this.
Oh,
It's the only thing I'll be dogmatic about. I forked over $250 to attend that EDUCAUSE workshop.
oh boy.
Runs about 2 weeks. I think that is something that the administration, I really think the administration needs to support more professional development activities for stuff like this. I really, really do.
I would agree.
And since these are copyrighted materials, I think I have made fair use of them. But having said that,
Well, we're not charging them for commercial purpose, so there saves us. There's the fair use part, right?
well, copyright's a little bit. Let me put it to you this way: I can't just take their materials and post them.
No, I get it. I get that, and I wouldn't want you to do that. I'm saying, do you have something structured
I
along
do.
the same lines that we could?
I
use
do.
as just to get people.
I do. Hang on a second.
Okay.
We have. Now they've just updated the website, so I don't know what we're going to get. Yeah, okay. At Learn It Now, learnitnow.stfrancis.edu.
Okay.
We have Gen AI and USF.
Oh, nice.
Now, what this has, I've put up here several documents which I think will serve the same thing. I haven't talked about grading and assessment all that much there, and I did have this as part of my presentation, and that is the idea of ungrading. Ungrading, not asking students what they want to get at the beginning of the year, showing them what they need to do to get there, and then guiding them along the way without necessarily casting out grades for every single assignment that's turned in or milestone assignments, because there's some research out there which I kind of believe that bad grades tend to discourage students. It defeats the purpose of learning.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Well,
kinda,
I have so I'll ask a different question of that regarding that. At what point do we start demanding expectations where, clearly you've got into a work situation, not everything is going to be a bed of roses. Your boss has due dates for you. And typically when you're given due dates, they give you a date and it's typically 7 days before. Well, how do you overcome habitual procrastination on the part of students to get them to understand that there are due dates, that there's a reason for this, that you can't progress forward without at least putting forth some effort to invest in your future?
all I'll do is I'll tell you what I do. I can't really say, I can't use my template as your template.
Yeah, no. I'm not
But-
suggesting. I get it.
And I do have deadlines coming up in the speech communications course, which I can't change. I just can't change.
Right.
But in the formative assessments that get up there,
I see.
if they need more time to get something done, I'm willing to work with them. I've told them I'll do my best to go the extra mile with you. What I won't do is go an extra 20 miles. And so I tried to find that as best I could.
Well, so to your point about formative assessments,
Right.
what I struggle with is that I've used that in the past and then students have done nothing and then they say, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay,
Academic alerts.
well, I get that. But at
Yeah.
that point, then it's the carrot and the stick,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I've given you carrots, right, to help you lead you. You've done nothing. Now you're upset that you got the stick. And I'm like, okay, but how does this help you? I can't do this for you, right? Like my role is not to do this for you, is to help you build
Yeah.
that resiliency and to build that efficacy so that you can do this. But you can't do it if you're just going to throw your hands up and say, well, plan A doesn't work. And then now I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, okay, well,
I face similar issues with
Right.
some of my students. But I think a degree of flexibility and accommodation.
I have learned that of late,
Yeah.
like in the last year or so. But
Okay.
I still struggle with people who then say, you ask them, well, where are you in the process? And they say, well, I've done nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't spend 20 hours with you to do this. I can certainly help you get started, but you have to take the initiative. I cannot be responsible to take on that responsibility.
Each semester that I've taught here, I have had to do an academic alert at least once or twice for students just like that. They just don't set the goal for passing the course. They just don't. And I can't figure that out. I do know, well, we're digressing so much off the beaten path. I think we have mental health issues here. As much as that's been beaten over quite a bit. There could be families. There's all kinds of things going on. Maybe some of them are going to Cancun to work.
It's a developmental thing too, where they're making the switch from
Independent
guided
learner to
to
or dependent to
everything.
independent learner, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of ungrading, I read all about it and I am a huge fan of it, but I think too one of the obstacles that I think we'll face, and I've tried to do some switch from grading into just formative check-ins in some of my courses, but I think the issue comes in where students don't understand the purpose of it because this is the first time they've been exposed to such thing.
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
takes time for them to recognize that even though there's no grade attached to it, like they've been used to seeing all their lives up to the point they reach in our classrooms, there's still so much that they can get out of that formative assessment now in our class without necessarily getting a grade attached.
Yeah. So circling back to this Learn It Now page, there's also the Artificial Intelligence Teaching Guide. This has various specific scenarios for teaching with AI, specific examples. The Faculty Guide to Getting Started with Gen AI. You can also download it. And there's another one too. I put a video here. There's also a teacher's prompt guide to ChatGPT, aligned with what works best. Another free download, which is available here. It's got lots of examples. I've got my own annotated bibliography. That substitutes for a lot of the stuff that they give you in the workshop. Okay, let me see what we have here in the questions. All right. Okay, very good. Anything else?
I did adapt something similar to this in technology for teaching and learning course.
Uh-huh.
And it was interesting because one of my students this week came up to me and told me about her experience in another class where she had to do some group work and some students were using ChatGPT, and I felt so proud of this moment. She says, through your course, I was able to learn how to use it, which to me, it was interesting because I simply had them analyze. I gave them a prompt. They had to produce something using AI, And then they had to provide whatever AI gave them and then analyze that. So talk about the ins and outs, the good, the bad, based on the content we had learned in class. And so they were able to see how AI has a lot of gaps, but also a lot of positives to it. And so from there, they were able to understand it's not necessarily AI being a tool that should be seen as an enemy, but a tool that they can use for supports in diverse situations. And so it was interesting for me to hear the student come back and say, I was able to learn how to use AI through that course where you taught us through that assignment. And for me, I figured that was probably something, I mean, I didn't do a whole lot, but it was just giving them an opportunity to play around with it. And so I think too, our students are looking for guidance. They're looking for an open door where they can venture with AI and figure out what is the right way, what is the wrong way to use it. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but.
Well, if you think this workshop is useful, spread the word. I'll do it again on March the 30th.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Glenn. Thank you so much.
And thank you for attending.
And I'm sorry, I don't think